I am Catwoman. Hear me roar.
I think that Catwoman is pretty key amongst comic book icons. She is an anti-hero where you have to question just what side is she on. She's not all that bad, but she ain't all that good.
She is very feline, very feminine, and at the same time, she can also be very when she wants to be.
Selina Kyle is a woman who is extremely strong, extremely focused, and yet extremely confused sometimes.
Using the whip was so beautiful and very kind of sexual and very feminine in its own way. But then you can also turn it and make it very lethal. That was a huge contribution to the character.
I'm a woman and can't be taken for granted.
She's one of the few characters that are in Batman's universe that can stand up to him.
What this situation needs is a woman's touch.
And with Catwoman, there were a lot of fights and things. You know, she's taken a fall, she's punching. And sometimes I go home and I mean, okay, I did my day's work today.
Yeah, and Gotham City will swing at our mercy.
Ask any actress what character they'd like to play in their life, invariably it'd be Catwoman. For many, many, many reasons.
When Batman debuted in the pages of Detective Comics, he quickly found himself face to face with the most dangerous, colorful, and bizarre criminals and rogues of all time. And yet, he met his greatest challenge in the form of a woman so intelligent, cunning, and strong. She remains the one mystery that Batman has never been able to solve. Her name is Selina Kyle, the Catwoman.
The 1940s got off to a rollicking start for Batman. In the first issue of Batman Comics, spring 1940, two characters were introduced, the Joker and the Catwoman. And it's really a seminal issue. And you talk about a great first issue comic, that's it.
I wanted to create a female villain because most of the villains prior to that time were males. So I created Catwoman in the image of a woman for a female audience. That way we would grab the male audience and the female audience.
The key thing I always remember about her is that when she first showed up, she didn't have the costume. She didn't have any costume. She was a jewel thief, and I think she had like a mask on that was disguising her as an old woman. She was this beautiful brunette who was dressed up in like a green dress or something, but nothing flamboyant or super heroine or villainous. And it would be another appearance or two before she would have like the cat mask, which would be more like an actual cat head on top of her, before she would finally have the stylized look that we would come to recognize as sort of the purple and green caped version that would last for a good, I would say, 40 years of the character's comic history.
When you go back to the very conception of the character, you're tapping into some very direct mythology that people connect to. The cat is perceived to be a creature that kind of walks the line of personality. It is your pet, but it's not sure you're the master. It is well behaved when it wants to be. And when you anthropomorphize that and you add the beautiful woman element to it, which has been a consistent part of the character, it makes for probably the most interesting villainess we've built in the DC universe over the years. You take those fundamental characteristics, people always want to know if the villain's going to turn good, if the hero's going to turn bad. How's this going to really work itself out? And Catwoman plays that drama out perfectly.
Selina's background was always mystery, and we've toyed with that. And there have been various versions as to who she was and where she came from. But most of the times when she appeared, she simply appeared. She's simply just this mysterious socialite. And I like that about her.
Probably the first version of Catwoman I ran across was in Julie Schwartz's edited issues of Batman in the 1960s. At that point, she was slightly dangerous cat burglar cracking a cat o' nine tails style whip through, but not in any particularly modern or sexy costume. It was still kind of a long purple outfit that had survived from the 1940s.
She really has this great multiple personality, but not in this psychotic sense of the word, of wanting to live her own life, whatever that life may be, whether it means going out and stealing rare Egyptian artifacts or fantasizing about living the straight and narrow with Bruce Wayne or whatever it is, and it will change every day.
The main thing that is surprising in a way is that Batman's never really had a Lois Lane. There's never really been a mature woman who matches him and is part of his team. Catwoman seems to fall neatly into that, but it never quite works out that way in the comics and the movies.
Batman has a problem. He didn't admit it for a long time. He's only attracted to bad girls. And the Catwoman is the perfect foil for him in that regard. He is torn. In fact, she is torn as well, because she's trying her best to be a bad guy. And there's this attraction she has to Batman that is difficult to deal with from time to time. Some of my favorite Batman Catwoman adventures have been those in which he's bringing her to the police are about to grab her, and then whoops, Batman does something by mistake and the Catwoman goes away scot-free.
That's the weird line that she toes with Batman, is this sort of romantic repartee where he feels bad about having to take her in. Why do you keep committing crimes? I love you so much, but he can't say he loves her. You know, it's that whole thing back and forth.
Selina Kyle as a character is tougher than nails. And there must be something about her that basically breaks down Batman. Here's a character who could take out anybody physically, but on a sensual side, she's able to overwhelm him in ways that we don't know.
Because she's not a villainess in the most diabolical of senses. She's not a murderess. She's not about gaining vengeance for any particular thing.
She has her good moments, she has her bad moments, and she also has a struggle very similar to Batman's about what she should be, what her purpose is in life.
Catwoman's career was suddenly cut short in the 1950s, and this time it wasn't Batman who put her away. It was the Comics Code Authority, an organization that was established to keep comic book content kid-friendly.
The heroes became neutered, and so that you could have a Lois Lane staring fondly at Superman, but you couldn't have passionate affair between Batman and Catwoman, which is obviously screamed for in the material. So in a way, the superheroes weren't allowed to grow up.
Catwoman may have been viewed as too risque for young readers, and her criminal escapades had no place in Batman's outer space adventures. More than a decade passed before the Cat was safe enough to return to comic books, only to find Batman in a slump.
The sales of Batman really had gone down. DC Comics was seriously considering canceling Detective Comics. Something had to be done. So the executives turned to their best editor, Julius Schwartz. They turned Batman really on its head. All of a sudden, the symbol, the Black Bat, now had a yellow circle around it. And he was being drawn in a much more modern, realistic, and stylistic approach. They started to reinvent the villains and brought back new Silver Age versions of the Joker and the Penguin, and ultimately, Catwoman and Two-Face. They took a little longer to come back.
Catwoman was unique among Batman's villains. It was a motif rather than a uniform. If you look at Penguin, the same 2 or 3 things were really the principal costume elements, regardless of which artist drew him over many, many decades. In the case of Catwoman, she really evolved much more dramatically in costume to stay what was perceived to be sexy at the time, what was perceived to be a little bit dangerous at the time. And as each artist took their stab, they brought their own elements to the process.
Throughout the 60s, artists and writers never had a problem coming up with new styles and plot twists to subvert the code and keep their characters and their readers fully engaged. But Catwoman was about to get a radical transformation when Hollywood brought the Bat family to prime time and in living color. Batmania was born, and Catwoman was ready for her close-up.
Nobody gets more applause than Catwoman.
To my knowledge, Julie Newmar was the only one that we wanted for Catwoman. I think Bill Dozier went right straight to her and cut to the chase.
It was just a call to my apartment in New York and said, will you, 2 days, show up, be in costume, learn the lines, and let's do it.
What a base of operations.
Yeah, it's a nice little pad, Cat Baby.
When I first met Julie as Catwoman, I was taken like every other man on the set, and I realized that she was extremely talented and had a wonderful sense of what the character could be.
I think Julie really had a hold on the fact that Catwoman is not all good or all bad. She knew how to work that costume. Nobody wears Lurex like she does.
Once you put on that costume and it is the right costume, it does 50% of the work. It helped the character enormously to have that sizzle. Catwoman sells itself. There's very little you have to do.
Just as I suspected, Robin, she's up to her old tricks.
Julie brought dimension to the character. She could be coquettish and seemingly naive, but at the same time reckless and a little fearsome, which was her job, you know, as a villain.
The Catwoman is not like the others. I'll show you how to clip Batman and Robin's wings. I will prevail.
But I think mostly it was the dead-on sexuality.
She made it work where it was clean, it was acceptable by the families with their children watching it, but yet it had that tone to it that everybody knew she was talking about. If you really look at it, she's the only one that really ever put that over.
Well, it was a good plot while it lasted, huh?
Yes, Catwoman, one of your very best.
Thank you.
After the first introductory season, we went immediately into a movie. And Julie, as I understood it, was unavailable. So along came Leanne Merriweather, who was wonderfully cast.
Comrade Wayne, my name is Kitania Irenia Tatania Karenska Alesov. I'm from the Moscow Bugle. My friends call me Kitka.
I think the first time that I saw the Catwoman character was in the early comic books. I used to collect comic books. I remember auditioning for the role, thinking, obviously I'll have to do something so that I'll stand out a little bit. So I proceeded to curl up in the chair when I got into the office with the producer and director, licked my hand, purred, and did all sorts of cat things while I was reading the script, trying to do all of this and hold the script too. And I guess that helped.
I say it's crazy, but I say let's try it. We have to do something to get Batman out of the way.
It was an innocent sexiness. That's the way I saw it. I never thought of it as being anything lewd or even cruel. I really thought of it as being campy, fun. Oh yes, sexy, but kittenish sexiness, you know, just sweet, not diabolical at all.
Get the commissioner on the phone.
While Julie Newmar effortlessly sunk her claws back into Batman's second season, she again found herself unavailable for the show's third and final stretch. Rather than finding just anyone to fill her catsuit, the producers chose the most provocative, seductive, sensual Selina Kyle yet. The multi-talented superstar Eartha Kitt, made for the perfect foil for the dynamic duo.
This is Batman, Catwoman.
You'd better get to 32 Pussyfoot Road, Batman, where a steel pattern cutter is just going to work on Batgirl.
Eartha Kitt was a very sassy Catwoman. She was definitely more claws out than any of the others. She was definitely no nonsense. She brought an entirely new direction to Catwoman.
When they asked me to do Catwoman, I didn't have to study the character of a Catwoman. I was living like a cat all my life. Let no one say that Catwoman is not the best-dressed woman in the world.
There are no fashion shows where you're going, Catwoman.
They had a costume and all, so I put it on and they gave me the words to say, and there you are. De l'ex de plein, marchez 50 mètres au nord. De la 50 pieds sur la droite. Essayez de trouver une pierre plantée dans la terre.
Oh, that's the first time I ever heard a cat purr in French.
Skip the flattery, Joker, and give me the translation.
In the heart of the 1960s, casting a black actress opposite Batman could have caused an uproar. But the first Catwoman of color became another milestone for the character's fearless legacy.
And I wasn't shocked, surprised, or anything, even though it was 1967. It just seemed right.
I didn't even think about it. A cat is a cat. She has no race, creed, or color, the way I feel about myself as an entertainer. I have no race, creed, or color. I belong to everyone.
As a singer, her voice and the way she accented certain words and held certain notes made her a wondrous Catwoman, because she could do the
I glow at the thought of that garment. The tones of her greetings should be always soft and gentle, like a cat. You see, when I do a job, I do it right. I always teased, but you know my sense of humor is to tease men anyway. So as a cat, I could go even further, teasing the man.
Well, you never learn that you cannot outwit the law.
Maybe one day I will, Batman. Perhaps.
When I hear the word Catwoman, in my mind, it's simply a gratitude that these three wonderful ladies did the show. They were marvelous. In Batman's mind, oh, when they get out of jail, maybe we could date.
Marriage was out of the question in the 60s TV series, but on the printed page, the pair's constant flirtation often left both frustrated. In the 1970s, the Cat returned to her role as both antagonist and lover, but never tying the knot. Except on Earth 2.
I also grew up in a time period where they had a sort of alternate story they wrote about Catwoman, where in one version of Batman's history, she marries Batman, and then they have a daughter together who goes on to become a crime fighter when she's an adult, which is where the legend of the Huntress comes from.
As the comics code was declawed, Catwoman's story, like Batman's, became grittier and more in line with the times. A landmark story in The Brave and the Bold revealed an earlier abusive marriage that led to Selina's life as a cat burglar. But it was Frank Miller's Batman Year One that reframed and revolutionized the origins and early days of both the Bat and the Cat. Nothing would ever be the same.
I do superheroes when I got an idea that belongs to a superhero idea. Most of my comics involve people who don't wear tights, but they're all heroic. And so whether they're naked or wearing trench coats or wearing tights, the same common themes apply.
Following the blockbuster success of his neo-noir film, Batman, director Tim Burton began exploring which dark alley of Gotham he would wander down next. He was enticed by Gotham's denizens of outcasts and misfits, setting the stage for a scarred and slightly schizophrenic Catwoman in 1992's Batman Returns.
You're catnip to a girl like me.
I was still intrigued by the other characters, you know, like Catwoman, you know, came to mind right away because next to the Joker, that was probably my favorite second villain in the piece.
Meow.
I was very interested in Catwoman because I like movies about female characters because to me, men have been done to death. There's so much to be done with women, so immediately I latched onto Catwoman. I had a take on Catwoman, and I came in with pretty much with the take that ended up in the movie.
She does grapple with the concept of, can a woman be a hero or a villain? Can a woman be a larger-than-life character? Can she be a character like Batman? And because we've made her Batman's equal in many ways, it's really fun to explore that concept in our movie.
How could you? I'm a woman.
I'm sorry, Michelle came into it and was just beautiful and perfect. I felt so lucky and then grateful that she came in and did an amazing job.
People come up to me now and they say, now, is she a good guy or is she a bad guy? And they're confused because they're rightfully confused because it was always left very ambiguous. And I always liked that. I always liked that they just let it be that. You know, that's the thing that's always been intriguing about this part, all the way back to the television series and all the way back to the original movie.
Be gentle, it's my first time.
Michelle really rocked it in the movie. I thought her performance was just dynamite. You know, she was kind of slinky and kind of vampy and in a kind of campy, kind of Julie Newmar way, but still she had like a real underlying psychotic edge to her. You know, you knew at any moment she could really, you know, really go off and do somebody some real harm.
She goes from just sort of put upon worker, lonely, sad secretary to having a nervous breakdown, then coming out on the other side of that and then seeing that split duality, you know, sort of the female version of Batman. That's where, you know, that was fun costume to design too. Put the stitching in there to kind of represent her kind of patchwork, you know, fragmentation of her character.
I read a couple of cat psychology books. But for the most part, I really approached it from the standpoint of the psychology of the character and this dual personality and what that meant. Everything really springing from that.
Don't hurt us, lady. Our take-home's less than 300.
You're overpaid. Hit the road.
When you break it down, it really is like 4 different characters. It was very complicated, and it was shot so out of continuity and over such a long period of time that I had to map it out much more specifically than I normally would do. I would leave a lot more up to kind of inspiration normally, but I wasn't really allowed that luxury in this film. And I just had to hope to God, and it somehow in the end made sense.
It's gonna be a hot time on the cool town tonight.
You got kind of a dark side, don't you?
No darker than yours, Bruce.
To me, she's never looked better, and she was very impressive. I mean, 2 things that impressed me extremely was when the cats were kind of bringing her back to life for sort of eye flutter and her eyes opening up. I still find that really chilling and amazing. And then that moment where, she put a live bird in her mouth and held it there for several seconds and then let it fly out. I mean, I don't know too many people that would do that. She did it several times. And no bird or person was injured in that, so.
The thought of busting Batman makes me feel all dirty.
Catwoman was hot. I mean, whew, she was so sleek.
Just the pussy I've been looking for.
Sometimes her sexuality will come out of a manipulation, sometimes it will come out of a playfulness, and sometimes it'll be very real. And we didn't exactly know where those moments were going to be. And then after a while, it just kind of took on a life of its own, and it became obvious where it had to be.
You're the second man who killed me this week, but I've got 7 lives left.
I loved Michelle Pfeiffer in the picture. I thought she was so wonderful. She had so many other emotional highlights that I would have loved to have played.
Gotta go. Girl talk.
The costume she wore, her eyes, the way she looked, her own essence, she's divine.
One of the biggest effects and most positive legacies left behind from Tim Burton's Batman films is the fact that it helped to greenlight the wonderful animated series.
When Bruce Timm came up with the look for Catwoman, I think he went back to several different inspirations, such as the look of the character originally in the comic books, Julie Newmar's look in the 1960s TV show, and even to a degree, the look Michelle Pfeiffer had in the Batman Returns film. That's as it should be, because Catwoman, is always changing her mind, and she's always coming up with new looks that bring out her sexiness and always bring out the sort of cat motif. I think the all-black Catwoman design for the animated series that we used last is a very good look for her, and that certainly gets across the look of playfulness and dark, sexy fun you can have with the character.
What's that for?
You, unless you come to your senses.
What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop stealing? The Emmy Award-winning Batman, the animated series, had great respect for the legendary history and mythology, while always bringing fresh ideas and surprising depth to its characters and stories. Catwoman, as performed by Adrienne Barbeau, became the ultimate independent woman.
I think it's time I do some digging. Not this time, Isis. I'm afraid where I'm going, they don't allow pets.
I think I instinctually had a sense about her voice, but I know that in the beginning, we would record 1 episode, and then maybe 2 weeks would go by, 3 weeks would go by. We'd go back in and do another one, maybe 2. And initially, I had a lot of anxiety because I kept thinking, gosh, what was that voice I used?
What a pleasant surprise. Though I should warn you, breaking and entering is against the law.
There's a lot of sexuality in Adrienne Barbeau's voice, so that even when you're looking at an animated cartoon running across your television screen, you're getting the sense that this character is having a real effect on whether or not it's the animated version of Batman or the actor that's playing Batman at the time. You can tell she's having a lot of fun, and she completely dove into that role and embraced it as her own.
I think the thing that women enjoy, the reason they like to play a cat character, is the sensuality. I think that most people, when they think of cats, think feminine, and we identify that with female sensuality as opposed to sexuality. And men probably aren't as interested in exploring that kind of physicality. So it's a feminine thing.
That's not my style. No finesse. See?
Okay. If you're innocent, come down to police headquarters with me and tell them your story.
That's also not my style.
Batman's world is very black and white, and Catwoman clearly represents the gray. She sees a greater good in the world, and sometimes you need to step into the gray to get to that.
Was my Catwoman evil? Well, she wasn't on the same side as Bruce Wayne. Let's put it that way. She wasn't on the same side as Batman. As an actor, you don't approach a character you're going to play thinking this is a bad person. You just need to understand what it is, what they're experiencing that makes them do what they're doing. I didn't put that much thought into it. Let's not kid anybody. It's a cartoon.
With a hit film and a TV series under her belt, Catwoman had it all. By 1993, her popularity reached an all-time high. In response, DC Comics launched her very first ongoing series, which revealed Selina's troubled childhood and followed her career as an international thief and corporate executive. But even that wasn't enough. Catwoman had proven that she wasn't just a sidekick or love interest. Finally, after 6 decades of patience, the feline fury was given her own feature film in 2004, this time without a bat in sight.
Cat got your tongue?
We did not want to do a sequel to Batman Returns and a sequel to that Selina Kyle character. We wanted to tell the new story of Catwoman and new origin story of Catwoman. There have been many Catwomans on television and in comics, and we went with the idea that, this Catwoman could become Catwoman like many others have throughout history.
Our movie sort of presents my version of Catwoman, or this version of Catwoman, as just one of many. She doesn't take the place of Selina Kyle or the great character that Eartha Kitt created many years ago. She's very modern because she's very indicative of the 21st century. Some of the elements of Catwoman are still the same. She still walks that line of good and evil.
Looking for something?
I like when real talents take action parts and then invest them with profound acting. Halle does that, and it affords her to be able to make blockbusters. As a great actor, you're allowed to have fun and make big, glamorous movies, and Halle gets that.
The character I enjoy because Catwoman is iconic. And what little girl wouldn't want to play Catwoman? She's the epitome of self-empowerment and self-love. And I think as women, some of the issues that have been laid on us in our society, we sometimes tend to not be in touch with our power and who we really are. And through Catwoman, I'm able to get in touch with my inner power. I've done that on this movie. And I've enjoyed playing her because I've sort of had a cathartic experience.
Well, are you coming down, or do I have to come up?
Catch me if you can.
As Batman continued to be reinvented in both animation and comics, Catwoman remained a constant player in his life, though he'd never know if she'd be friend or foe, often both at the same time. Throughout pivotal events like Nightfall and The Long Halloween, Catwoman never faltered in her dedication to the Bat. Their mutual respect and admiration grew to the point where Bruce finally revealed to her his secret identity in the seminal epic Hush. At the same time, acclaimed filmmaker Christopher Nolan had transformed the cinematic superhero landscape with his realistic portrayal of the Dark Knight's world. He placed Selina Kyle in the middle of Batman's conflict with the arch-criminal Bane in the final chapter of his trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises.
With every character we bring into this world, we have to have a way of grounding that character. When my brother Jonah first suggested Catwoman for the story, it took me a while to figure out my way into that, like how you could see this character in the real world. But then realizing that she could just be this calm woman, this grifter, this classic movie Femme Fatale, really. That was the way in. And then you can grow the iconic figure of Catwoman out from that.
You can't tell the story without that character, to me,
because there's something about the way in which her gray hat, kind of morally ambiguous philosophy finally gives Batman someone he can relate to.
Oh, you don't seem happy to see me.
You were supposed to be a shut-in.
I felt like some fresh air.
Selina Kyle's point of entry into the story really is she's a point of fascination for Bruce. So this is someone who's disengaged from the world. This is someone who is very jaded, feels that he's seen it all, done it all. And then what he has to see in her is something that draws him out of himself, that interests him in the world again. And I think that Anne's been very much able to do that through the character of Selina Kyle.
Well, what do you know?
It's Catwoman. It's an incredible role. It's one of the most famous, if not the most famous, comic book character for a woman. It was also a character that I've dreamed of playing since I was a little girl and saw Michelle Pfeiffer play it.
Still don't trust me, huh? How can we change that?
You never quite know where you are with Selina Kyle. Part of that is she's incredibly physically impressive. She takes on the men in an incredible way and totally holds her own.
I want what you owe me.
She seems to be morally a little questionable, but at the same time, I find myself rooting for her because she's got a heart somehow, even amongst this dark exterior.
Like your girlfriend, Mr. Wayne.
He should be so lucky.
For him, it's a breath of fresh air. It's life. Even if they disagree on principles, he loves the disagreement, you know? He loves that people are not just agreeing with him either because he's Bruce Wayne or that they're intimidated by him as Batman, that she doesn't seem to care. She doesn't give a damn that he's Bruce Wayne, and she's not intimidated by him when he's Batman, you know? And it's kind of an affront to him. But it's wonderful because that's fascinating because nobody ever treats him that way.
See you around.
You're welcome. I think she's someone who has known a lot of disappointment in her life, and she's someone who's been betrayed a lot. And if you're lied to or betrayed, it becomes easier for you to do it to other people.
I had to find a way to stop them trying to kill me.
You made a serious mistake.
I think it's one of the things that makes her regret betraying Bruce Wayne ultimately, because she's come to expect very little from the world, and I think he's somebody that surprises her in a good way. And so when she realizes she had a hand in his downfall, it causes one of the first true moments of reflection that she's had in a very, very, very long time.
Finding Anne Hathaway to play her has been key to finding the balance between the reality of the characterization and the beautiful, iconic presence of this character. She's able to combine those things seamlessly so that they're not in conflict, but the one is amplifying the other.
Mr. Wayne? I'm sorry they took all your money.
No, you're not.
Storytellers continued to reframe and rethink the origin and private lives of Batman and his inner circle. TV's Gotham was a chance to start the saga at the very beginning. After witnessing the murder of Bruce's parents, Selina, now a teenage street orphan, pledged to help him in his quest for vengeance. Gotham gave Cat a chance to walk both sides of the law in her road to her self-discovery.
Thanks again for meeting me, Selina.
Sure.
I didn't have anyone else to call. I know it's asking a lot, so I just really appreciate it.
Bruce, I'm gonna be here whenever you need me.
One of the things that we like about the relationships between all the heroes and villains of Gotham is that they're really complicated. Deep down, you do feel that no matter what happens, that they are kind of still friends. And I think that's the same with Selina and Bruce.
I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there.
I think what Bruce finds attractive about Selina is she's very impulsive and she's very instinctual. And I feel like that's something Bruce wishes that he could sort of access more, and he is unable to. He is much more of a planner and much more of a thinker, and she's much more of a doer.
Slice and dice, little chickie. You look soft. You look like 300 pounds of ugly.
They are two young people who are both trying to find their way through the world. They constantly push against each other and propel each other in different directions.
Whose side are you on, Bruce?
Yours. Always.
Each time one of them gets to a point where they can step outside themselves and kind of like be there for the other person is not ready for that. Watching the trajectory of that story was really watching for both of them a coming of age story. Getting into the place where they were both mature enough they could actually be with one another by the end.
You're welcome.
She's the one who took him in and showed him the ropes of being an occupant of the street. Through her, he's been able to really understand the necessity of Gotham needing a Dark Knight.
Who is he? Friend.
Gotham's 5-year run ended as it began, with Selina on a Gotham rooftop, not hidden, but fully revealed as Catwoman.
Return the diamond.
Like how?
With each generation, a new Catwoman emerges from the shadows. For director Matt Reeves, The Batman presented the perfect opportunity to reimagine the complex character of Selina Kyle.
The villains are often, some of the most, if not the most exciting part of the movies. I mean, the Rogues Gallery is incredible. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to see a Batman that was not an origin tale, but was sort of in his early days. But that meant that a lot of the characters who are the Rogues Gallery characters are in their origins in a way. And so we have a Selina Kyle who's not yet Catwoman.
Selina can take care of herself. She's incredibly tough. She really wants to fight for those who don't have someone else to fight for them. And I think that is where Batman and she really connect.
What's most interesting about Selina Kyle is that she represents the savior for the ill-treated, the forgotten, the people that have not had anybody looking after them. She's also very complicated. You don't quite know exactly where her loyalty or her allegiance lie.
Hey, stud. I thought we had something together.
The Cat has enjoyed more than her fair share of 9 lives, each one full of style, skill, and Gotham grit. Each one redefining what it means to be a strong woman in a Batman's world. Catch her if you can. Many have tried over the last 80 years, and even the best have failed. But that is, and always will be, the allure of our favorite feline femme fatale, Catwoman.
Did someone mention a dance? Meow.
Batman lives very much in a black and white world. There is good, there is evil. There is no gray, except for Catwoman.
We could have a lot of fun. What do you say?
I say, renounce your evil ways, Catwoman.
Of all the villains, I would say yes, Catwoman would be my favorite. For obvious reasons.
That's what you say, Batman.
I mean, I never dated the Joker.
She played with him, she toyed with him, she teased him, she manipulated him, she outsmarted him. It's everything that every little girl wants to do with any male person that comes in and takes up her space.
This is gonna hurt. It's made me a huge star with my 7-year-olds. They don't care about the R-rated movies or Maude, which was 20,000 years before they were born. But Catwoman, that's cool.
Meow, meow, you're in. Meow, meow.
I think, people have had a fascination with comic book characters for decades, and Catwoman is no different. She's epitomizes fantasy, what every woman would want to be and who every man would like to be with. What's not to love about going to see that story?
3 Catwomen?
Is that so bad?
Of course it is. Now he has to pick just one. Perhaps not.